from this camera angle, but like you say, when they've put down the stone chippings and almost glued it to the road, it's terrible especially for descending, but also just really feels very sticky. The roads feels very
especially when it's hot.
Harsh roads.
Especially when it's hot, you can actually end up with a part of your road on your tires. We're almost at the top of the climb of Col de la Justice with our breakaway, and if you look at the evolution of the time gap that Procycling Stats always provides, it's been completely stable for the past 30 kilometers. So that means that these three teams at the front, although we see a new team there with Cofidis also joining the fun, but up until now it was Trek Segafredo, Groupama FDJ and EF Education Easy Post. Those teams, they are using one, maybe two riders, are not losing any time. So they need extra riders. And I think that they know their history as much as we do, that Remy Cavagna has pulled the stunt before. And if you don't catch him, you won't see him until you look at the podium in about 2 hours' time.
He's such an incredibly strong, powerful rider who's able to sustain this type of effort for such a long period of time. And he's one of those riders where you have to start to make some inroads into that time gap sooner rather than later, or at least get it fully under control, because despite several teams putting riders up towards the front and committing 2 or 3 riders for a chase and just to control the time gap, it has stayed and remained steady at the moment. And when you take a look at the climbs that we've still got to come, and just how difficult it is, especially towards the back end of the race and the 3 climbs that come on that larger loop, or the final loop, it's and as it becomes the roads are more narrow, you're onto sort of almost farm roads. You've got some longer descents as well, where it's going to be difficult to make any effect into the time gap there. They need to start to do it sooner rather than later.
It's Tony Galopin and Julien Bernard, the 2 French riders for Trek Segafredo at the front of the bunch. Like I said, they're here with Matthias Skelmos, of course. He had a pretty solid start to the season as well. Cataldo is here, and also Quinn Simmons, who also won a stage already early January in Argentina. Pretty impressive solo attack there by the man from America. And the previous winner of the Tour of Rwanda, there he is, Nathanael Tesfacion, in that lovely new kit of Trek Segafredo. There's a lot of red going on in the peloton, but this is a different kind of red, and it's more white.
At least there's some white.
Yeah, very helpful. Yeah,
it's almost like we've got teams of 18, isn't it, with several teams who have all opted for the red-orange colours this year.
Yeah, it's really fun because I saw this tweet of Velo News cycling journalist Saivo Shea having a picture of, it was Bardiani, it was Bahrain, Arkea and Trek,
Ineos.
I think. And Ineos. It's like, are we allowed to bring 21-man strong teams to the race right now? And that was exactly it. It's like they looked exactly the same, and especially if you look at helicopter shots, it's it's a pretty difficult thing. Groupama FDJ, they really stand out. They're here with a team with David Gaudu, the 2021 winner, Bruno Armirail, Romain Grégoire, young Lenny Martinez, Quentin Paché, Mathieu Ladagnou, and Lorenzo Germani. So a little bit of a mix of their first year pro riders like Grégoire, Martinez and Germani, and some of their more experienced riders, including Mathieu Ladagnou, who has embarked on his 16th season with this team. Yeah, he's part of the furniture, is what we say in Dutch.
Certainly at home.
Yeah, he's at home, and he's one of those riders. Robert Geesink, for example, is also one of those riders who's been with the same team his entire career. And I really like teams appreciating their domestiques, because you need guys, this is not Ladagnou, by the way, but you need guys who ride at the front. Otherwise, Gaudu has no shot of actually winning it.
Absolutely. I often think that about Luke Rowe, who spent his entire career at formerly Team Sky, now Ineos Grenadiers, where they really are part of the furniture, and they're such a valuable member and asset to the team. that as a domestique, as a road captain, or quite like Kwiatkowski as well, being with Ineos Grenadiers.
Exactly.
Whilst they're not in this race, it's just you can see how valued they are as riders.
Quentin Simmons there, even beardier than before. I think his beard is still in winter mode because it's quite lavish at the moment, Hannah. They did wind tunnel testing with riders with beards. You know that.
What was the outcome?
That it doesn't matter for aerodynamics. And especially, of course, he doesn't wear a specialized helmet. But if he would put on a specialized socky helmet, the sock helmet, it would just completely smoothen his beard, and it would be aerodynamic anyways. But they did research in wind tunnels, and it didn't really make all that much of a difference. So Quinn Simmons can be as beardy as he wants, and of course he has got the Spring Classics in mind. This is also the kind of race that he could do well, but he is clearly domestiquing, if that is a verb, at the moment.
We'll add it to the Oxford Dictionary. But between Quinn Simmons and Schelmoser, I really think that Trek Segafredo have one of the strongest teams with two options of different ways in which to win. And I think Quinn Simmons taking the confidence from his stage victory in Argentina at the beginning of the season, I think they have that dual leadership between the two.
Yeah, most definitely. Valentin Ferron is taking a little bit of a turn as we pass the cimetière, the cemetery. There's always usually my dedicated stop at bike rides, a cemetery. Often because they have tap water. Not always, but quite often they do. And cemeteries in France are well visited, even the ones that look completely deserted, because it's a Catholic country, and a Catholic faith has a little bit of a tradition to keep visiting the graves, on the 1st of November, but also on Mother's Day, Father's Day. So there's always people using that particular tap. So there's usually clean water. You can go completely wrong with it, but if you smell it and it smells foul, just don't do it. Goes with cheese. That doesn't go with cheese anyway, that rule, but it does go with water or milk.
You've got all the facts here, Zay. All the facts.
Oh yeah, I've been riding in a lot of departments in France, and this one is still quite populous. But there are places in France where there's hardly any people living, so you really have to plan where you can get your next drink, and cemeteries often are a good place for that.
And I often think around in this region and in this area, there's so much beautiful countryside, but villages or populated villages are sort of few and far between in parks.
Exactly. I was at Paris-Nice last year for work, and there was a big demonstration during one of the stages, and it was about the only village doctor leaving the town. And that is a big problem of these less populated areas, that a lot of the facilities, including a town doctor, are becoming a little bit of a problem. So there was a big demonstration going on there in this same region, by the way, with stage number 6, about the village doctor leaving. The gap is coming down a little bit at the moment. We are approaching the 4-minute mark. The man at the front is called the TGV of Clermont-Ferrand, and the TGV, for those of you watching and not familiar with French infrastructure, is the high-speed train service here in France. The train à grande vitesse, a train with high speed, is actually the translation, and they are really popular in France, especially with sales representatives, but also just go on holiday. The network is fantastic. You go 300 kilometers an hour, which is 200 miles an hour, and there's a fantastic network that brings you to all corners of France. It's a really great system, but he's called the TGV of Clermont-Ferrand, where he's from, for a reason. And that is because he does these things.
Certainly brings the speed, doesn't he? And I believe in France now that some domestic flights are banned because the train service is so good that they've banned short-haul travel.
Yeah, exactly. That it's also in a lot of companies, it's actually not allowed to take domestic flights anymore due to environmental reasons, which is really great. And in Europe as a whole, they're really working very hard on their train connections, having night trains back from example, Amsterdam to Vienna or Berlin, or even to Barcelona is a new network that they want to create to get people on the train. Valentin Ferrand, you might have seen him on the internet as the man dangling from a bridge in the Étoile de Bessèges, that huge crash that we had. And he was dangling off the bridge. In the end, it was only a meter or so to the ground, but of course he couldn't see that. So that was a little bit of a clip that went viral with Valentin Ferrand. The day afterwards, he was second on the stage, so he did recover well, luckily for him. Great job there done by EF Education Easy Post on the national champions jersey of Merhabi Kudus and of that of Esteban Chavez as well. A really standout, contrary to a team from the Middle East that shall not be named.
I really like how they make the national champions jersey so prominent.
Yeah,
exactly. Make it stand out.
Hannah, I'm just listening to the tunes that we have here at the finish line. I have no idea if you can listen to them at home. But we're now into Cyndi Lauper with Girls Just Want to Have Fun, which is great because you don't always get an all-female duo on men's races. So this could be our anthem right now.
It certainly is. We're certainly enjoying ourselves. We're treated to a tremendous weekend of racing on Eurosport and GCN this weekend. I was looking through how many races the fans have got to be able to feast their eyes on. It's quite incredible, really.
Yeah, if you have 24 hours in a day, like I have, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. But of course, this morning we started with the UAE Tour, and we have the race in Galicia for you to enjoy on our digital platforms after you finish this one, or maybe you already watched it yesterday. Well, Jonas Vingegaard, that was impressive, Hannah. It was like he wanted to say to Tadej Pogačar, okay, you started your season, now I'm here, let me show you something.
It was very, very impressive, and the way in which he won, and looking at how the group was so whittled down by that point. But yeah, great for him, I think, coming into a season, taking a victory already and so early on, does wonders for riders' confidence as well, because if you've seen your rivals winning early on in the season and you've come into a new season as having won the Tour de France the year before previous, and then just losing out at the Crow race towards the back end of the season for Jonas, I think great for him to already have that victory early on.
There was a little bit of discussion whether Pogačar was not too good too soon. One of the voices that mingled in that discussion was former sports director Johan Bruyneel. I thought the article that I read on the website La Course en Tête was really good. Why should it be only about the Tour de France? The young guys like Pogačar is somebody who actually loves bike racing. He just wants to ride and win as many bike races as he can. And why should we be bothered whether that is 3 stages in Andalusia? And why should we wait until July to see him in action?
I totally agree. I'd seen that article, and I thought it was a brilliant article from I believe it was Peter Crossins who'd made those comments on the website. And
he did.
What we're seeing now is riders are coming to races to race and to win races. I feel like we're going away from doing a race as a training race. And
there's no training races anymore.
There's no training races anymore. So I think we, as fans of cycling, of the races, as anyone who goes to spectate, they're really treated to high quality racing. They've always got an incredible field. I mean, you take a look how many races are on this weekend, and in this race alone we've got so many big name riders across the big teams. And when you take a look, the 13 World Tour teams, 6 Pro teams, and 2 Continental teams, it's a real treat to have the such quality spread throughout all the racing on a weekend where you've got 4 or 5 races on.
Yeah, because I didn't even finish my my summary. Galicia's on. We have this race, and of course Omloop het Nieuwsblad, both men and women's race. I hope that they will be done in time, Hannah, with this race, so we can enjoy the Omloop het Nieuwsblad for women coverage straight after.
Brilliant.
Absolute fantastic timing for us there. Because that is, of course, also pretty exciting. I counted no less than 6 events, also with the highlights from Rwanda coming up. And a little bit of a shake-up today in the general classification as we approach the final 2 stages in Kigali. And, of course, in 2 years' time, we'll have the World Championships in Kigali. And if you just want to take a look at the Twitter feed of Tour du Rwanda, you can see the scenes already. This is their national race. In 2 years' time, when we go there for the World Championships, it will be completely crazy scenes there on the Mur de Kigali.
It's spine-tingling, isn't it? The crowds, the passion, the emotion that they bring to the roadside is spectacular.
We're under the 70 kilometers to go mark, and the gap is now under the 4-minute mark. Normally, everything would still be completely under control, but the man there in the blue and white of Soudal Quickstep is really somebody special. He is the former national champion. He's the former national time trial champion. He's done this before, and he is a super, super strong rider. But, yeah, of course, once you've done this once or twice, you don't fly under the radar anymore in the peloton. You are an established name, and the peloton knows what they have with you in a breakaway. The breakaway actually established straight from the start, and that was because we had a pretty solid uphill start, starting with 10 kilometers of climbing at 4.3%, then a little bit of a plateau, and then another 2 kilometers to go at 4%. So that was a pretty decent start, and we ended up with a very strong duo at the front. There's no mistaking about that. This is not some breakaway. Valentin Ferrand might be the more unknown rider of the two, but he is a strong rider, although from what we've seen in the breakaway, Hannah, it looks like Cavagna is doing a little bit more work.
It was looking like that earlier on, wasn't it? When we got a real long look at that duo out front, and he was pulling and doing the longer of the turns, and it really does put the pressure on the teams behind, as we see now Uno X starting to move up in the yellow on the right-hand side of the screen as we look at it. So several teams wanting to assist here, but also when you see that descent that the breakaway duo are on, there's only so much room for so many riders, and everybody wants to make sure that they're out of trouble. When it starts to narrow, as you see a few technical parts on that descent too, and also with the road surface.
Yeah, I was looking at that little bridge there that the two riders in the lead just passed. That is, of course, where mayhem really struck in Étoile de Bessèges, that very narrow bridge, a little bit of a tense, nervous situation. And this is not the kind of race where you have done a recon. It is true that we are on a local loop and that they have done this part before. And then we return back to the finish line at 37 kilometers to go. And then we do one more loop that Hannah described as being the one with the steepest walls, which is absolutely true. So they have been here before, but these narrow bridges that the peloton is now approaching are always a little bit of a pinch point and make me hold on to my seat just a little bit tighter.
I'm curious as to how much information that Pierre Latour has been able to give to Valentin Ferrand, because he's the local rider within Total Energy, and I'm sure will have ridden these loops on a number of occasions and knows quite a few of the roads that they're racing on today. Likewise, I was speaking to Laura Asencio, who is a female professional racing in Belgium this weekend, but it's quite literally on her doorstep, this race, and she was saying that these roads, they're brilliant training roads. They're very, very quiet, but they are narrow, they are twisty, as we can see on this descent here, and there is a few pinch points along the way.
Yeah, that must be funny that you're racing Omloop het Nieuwsblad and tomorrow Omloop van het Hageland, and then you have a big bike race on your doorstep. But of course, these are professional bike riders. They have to earn their keep and race in Belgium. So that race will of course be on after we finish. And yeah, the men's race. I'll just have to stay off Twitter to avoid any spoilers on Omloop het Nieuwsblad. Big new sponsor there on the behind of Remy Cavagna, which has become, Hannah, you have been in bike team sponsoring, a more prominent place to put your sponsorship on the behind. It's something that we've seen more and more recently, and as you can see with Cavagna as well, bigger than ever before.
I think it's one of the most valuable places for a sponsor to have their brand, their advertising, their logo. It's prominent. It's a prominent placing, and we're seeing more and more that the teams know how important that part of the all-in-one, the skin suit, the bib shorts, whatever they might be wearing, and just how important it is. Not just the logos on the front of the jersey.
The new team at the front of the bunch at the moment are the Norwegian-Danish ensemble of UNOX. Led by Jesper Mokhoff, the brother of. Torsten Treen is here, Marcus Hansen, Adna Holter, Jakob Metzen, Frederik Dversnish and Niklas Ek. So this is a part of their climbing corps. Of course, they also have a team in Belgium racing. I do think that Christoph is ill, but they have another fantastic sprinter there. And of course, it's going to be their year because they got a wild card for the Tour de France, which is a huge achievement. Last year for the first time with the women, and now both the men's and the women's UNOX team will be racing the Tour de France. A testimony of a good project with a good vision there.
Well deserved. And I have to say, they're a team that won't just go to the Tour de France to look for breakaways and getting the television minutes or hours. They will really go there with big and high ambitions of trying to come away with a result and really be mixing it up and doing the damage there, as per se.
And now the gap is coming down steadily as we are looking at the bright red Specialized of Valentin Ferrand, a 25-year-old from France. He was born in Vienne, but actually got his race education in Poitiers, which is a little bit more to the west. As a junior, he already had his first podium in the Ober-Österreich Rundfahrt, or the Upper Austria Tour. One of the most prominent youth junior tours in the world, actually. And he also won stages in the amateur circuit and then turned pro with Total Energy. He also was part of the development team there called Vendée. Vendée is one of the regions in France closely linked to Total Energy. That is their feeder team. It's not a continental team like the development teams of, for example, Groupama FDJ. They are a continental team. They're an amateur team, DN1, Division Nationale, number 1, but a lot of great talent coming through the ranks there for the Total Energy team. They are here not only with Ferrand, but also the man of the region, like you said, Pierre Latour, Alexis Viermos, Jérémy Cabot, Fabien Doubet, Alain Jouzaume, and Paul Ourselin. Those are the riders, and look at that. That is a bridge that you don't want to cross on your bike. It's beautiful.
Stunning. It really is a stunning region here. The countryside, the nature, the mountains, it really has got it all. You can kayak down the Ardèche as well, close by.
Yeah, most definitely.
I have done that. I've done that.
You have done the touristy thing?
I have. High school trip it was.
with the big half bridge there that you have in the background of your school your school trips there. The next climb that we're going to do is actually at the end of our local lap. That is in about 22 kilometers. It's called the Sommet de Val d'Enfer. And if you translate that, it's actually called the Valley of Hell, Val d'Enfer. So I don't know what we can expect here. I don't know what we can expect here, but the name is promising, though.
It certainly is a difficult climb to finish with, and that's the one that we will crest with around just over 6 kilometers to go. The one that we were speaking of earlier, Jose, of maximum gradients of upwards of 14%, and the riders have done this already, or will be coming up to 2 occasions before that final time. So they will know this climb well. They'll, as I say, they'll have already done it on 2 occasions before that final time. So positioning is crucial. But the steepest part of that climb comes with around 700 meters to go until you crest the top of the climb. And when you see an average of close to 10%, I think it tells you everything that you need to know.
Yeah,
of, just how difficult the climb is.
Yeah, for me, that is the moment that I'm just getting off my bike and walk. But that's just me. 8 degrees, that's about 44 Fahrenheit today, and still very little sunshine. It looks like it's improving just a little bit, but luckily for the riders, it's dry. We have had rain in these races. We have had snow. We have had hail even. So I think the riders will be perfectly content with these temperatures. And Hannah, when it's 8 degrees at the start was at 11 this morning. How do you make your choices for what to wear? Because for a pro cyclist, that's always a big thing. What kind of garments do I take out of my extensive collection?
It's always a talking point, isn't it? And making sure that you're comfortable. You see some riders, they've still got their leg warmers on. They're wearing a lot more clothing, items of clothing. You can see one of the riders there from Groupama FDJ, so center of your screen with the leg warmers on and the longs. Whereas other riders, they've opted for shorts. Predominantly everybody that I've seen so far, everyone's got arm warmers on. I always think if you start with arm warmers, a gilet over the top of your jersey, you can always discard of those and put them in your back of your pocket or give it to one of the soigneurs at the side of the road later on into the race if you feel that you're heating up. And I think we'll start to see riders discarding of their gilets or long sleeves the closer we get to the finish line, and it's almost go time. It's racing time.
I'm just admiring that rather wonderful jersey for Mera. The fact that he has got arm warmers and leg warmers might also mean that he is not the kind of guy who should be doing the final. Because getting leg warmers off is a little bit of a hassle, is it?
Oh, it's a massive hassle. It certainly is. I've seen riders do it, though, very, very well on the move. Others not so much. But likewise with the Kudish, you can see as well, he's got his toe warmers on, others with full overshoes. I think one of the best items of kit, I think, toe warmers.
I love them. I don't really like shoe warmers because my calves are too big for the average shoe warmer. I just can't close the zipper, and it's usually not the heel of the foot that's cold. It's the front. And the great thing about the toesies is also that it closes off that little hole that you have under your cleats, so the water doesn't flow into your shoes like I had this morning. It's really great as a commentator to have a little bit of first-hand experience. It's what I do for this job, Hannah. It's what I do.
You certainly were out in the elements this morning, weren't you? I think the weather gods lied to you.
They did. Well, the rain radar lied to me because apparently it was going to be a bright sunny day. Well, maybe somewhere else. 3 minutes now, 63 kilometers, and judging from the body language there of Ferrand, he's getting a little bit more tired. Of course, this is about the 100-kilometer mark of their breakaway. The attack came straight after the start in the town of Guilherand-Grange. That's also where we have our finish in 63 kilometers, and the only reason we are here and have been here for a couple of years is that FAUN, which is the name giver of this race, is a big company doing all sorts of environmental issues. They have purifying systems, they have garbage disposal systems. They're active in both Germany and France, and they have one of their big factory office thingies just outside of Guilherand-Grange, where we are racing today. Still over jackets, we just discussed this, still jackets for our two riders at the front. And Hannah, it's maybe a law in cycling, but of course being in a breakaway of two is never great, because you have to work so hard. You don't have a lot of relaying to do, actually.
You don't, and you don't have that time to really recover, because and also with it being these two riders who have been out front since the breakaway had gone away, they've never had that assistance or help. But I have to say, both of these riders are committed. I think they both have strong teams who are keeping themselves ready and patient should things all come back together, both on Soudal Quickstep and Total Energy. Really puts the pressure, I think, onto some of the bigger teams. It's quite traditional in these types of races where we'll see maybe the pro teams, the second division teams, or a third division team, the likes of Unant Atlantique, one of those teams to be in the breakaway. But today,
the start was just too hard.
It was a very, very difficult, demanding start. Straight away, uphill.
Koudous and Galopin are the two riders taking turns at the front of the bunch. Gradually, our gap is coming down for our two leaders, Rémi Gavagna, the 27-year-old from France, and his 24-year-old compatriot, Valentin Ferron. He turned pro in 2020 with Team Total Direct Energie. This is a contract year for him, so that's always an important year. And he started the season with a trio of French races that you've been able to watch here on Eurosport, Discovery Plus and GCN Plus, with Grand Prix La Marseillaise, where he was second. He was in Étoile de Bessèges and also the Tour des Alpes Maritimes et du Var. He's on the list to do Paris-Nice, which starts a week from now. What was that? Was that Santa Claus? Was it?
I was just about to say, was that Santa Claus?
Maybe it was Gandalf. I don't know. Can we have a replay of that? Strange people on sides of roads.
Perhaps an impersonation of Didi the Devil. Who knows? Hopefully we'll see it again when the peloton passes.
Yeah, let's look at the left side of the road in about 2 minutes' time. But about Ferron, he had his first win in the Tour of Rwanda 2 years ago, and last year, of course, the biggest win to date in the Critérium du Dauphiné, where he attacked from a breakaway and held off Pierre Rolland and Warren Barguil, two legends of French cycling. Sadly, Rolland not with us anymore in the peloton, retired after the B&B hotels thing, but was second in that stage in Dauphiné, which was, of course, the biggest victory to date for this man in Gap, that was in the south of France. Great job there by Merhabi Koudous. Very international team, 12 nationalities in the EF Education Easy Post. One of their riders is Simon Carr, and I found it funny that on their website they have like a joint British and French flag. He is British, his parents are British, but he grew up in France, so he has a bit of a joint flag on the website. And of course, EF Education is an education business, and I know them predominantly from their travels that you can go to high school, for example, in the US, or my sister-in-law went with them to Norway. She learned to speak Norwegian, and that's what they do, and they have a very international roster as well to boast.
I don't know about you, Jose, but when I'm in a train station or an airport and I see something related or a sponsor that's related to cycling, I'm always like, oh, great to see them. But I remember seeing someone with an EF Education backpack, completely separate to cycling, as we take a look at the three chases from earlier on. Niels Bruin just on the back there for Tudor Pro Cycling, Noah Isadore and Florian Rapetot.
A little bit of credit for them. It's great how many cycling brands you see around you, isn't it? And when we built this house, we also had quite a few cycling brands installed, which is funny. And maybe consciously, but most likely subconsciously, you do buy the brand that you know, and that is, of course, marketing psychology and marketing philosophy after all these sponsorships. Like, oh, I know Quickstep, I know that brand, I've known them for 20 years, and I might need that brand, or have Hansgrohe showers, or stuff like that, and that's how it works. And I do hope that cycling fans also reward the sponsors by buying the products.
Moving billboards, I always say. Cyclists, they're one of the best ways to grow the knowledge to the spectators, the fans, those around the world of different brands, and a great marketing campaign.
Especially since cycling is one of those rare sports, as we are in Saint-Romain-des-Lers. We're going to be here again, but then do it from the other side, if I'm correct. I think we are going to do counterclockwise the second time around. But yeah, cycling sponsorship, of course, some teams have like 10, maybe even 15 sponsors on their jersey. Some have just a few, like Ineos. But this is the kind of fun that we are going to watch in the final of this race. The gap is coming down. I don't really believe anymore, Hannah, that these two riders are going to stay at the front. I think themselves they would have hoped to have a little bit of a bigger breakaway as well.
They would have hoped to have maybe had a little bit more of a buffer at this point, but I still say that once we start to get towards that back end of the race, and when you've got these steep descents as well, some of the technical roads that the riders will face, and especially with it being so difficult in that final 7-8 kilometers until the finish line, you can already start to see just also how fast it is in the peloton at the moment. Still, EF Education towards the front, likewise with Trek Segafredo. Uno X still there with their riders on the left-hand side of the road in the yellow jerseys. Also, Intermarché is just starting to move up there. You can see with the white and the fluorescent yellow jerseys.
Can't be missed, especially not with that bar tape. That is great bar tape. I like it. It's very fluo. I had yellow bar tape last year in honor of the first Tour de France Femmes, and I got so many remarks about that people loved it. It's a bit bold. It can become a little bit dirty, but it's really great to have bright bar tape. Yeah, the Intermarché 1T team, they are here with the former world champion Rui Costa. Also, Lilian Calmejean, he has been on the podium here before, winning the race in 2019, coming in third the year before. They have from their development team Francesco Bussato, Laurens Huis, Lorenzo Rota, also a man in form at the moment, the Italian, and Georg Zimmermann. Those are the riders of the Intermarché 1T team, and of course they can mix their riders, Hannah, as a World Tour team with a development team. And that's what they can do in these races. Oh, this is getting a little bit chaotic there with the musettes.
Nasty. Yeah, see riders discarding of some of their clothing as well. And that's one year who's trying to give out a bottle. And yeah, could have been a bit messy, but everyone's fine. To answer your comment there, Jose, about teams being able to mix their development riders with their world teams, I think it's brilliant. We saw one of the riders just moments ago towards the back of the peloton in the black jersey of Team DSM, Max van der Meulen. He's part of their development team, Team DSM. Only 19 years of age, but he's having that opportunity. He's been given that taster of the high level racing. This is a Point Pro race here, also his first race of the season, so certainly straight into the deep end for the 19-year-old Dutchman.
Yeah, an impeccable pronunciation there, Anna. Absolutely spot on.
Thank you all.
Julien Bernard, he's always very recognizable there at the front of the peloton with his big beard. It's not as luscious as Quinn Simmons is, but it's still very recognizable. 55 kilometers. We are 10 kilometers out from the climb of Val d'Anvers, which is 1.5 kilometers, and it's going to give us 10.3%. This is going to be the final as well of today's stage. So after that climb, we have a very fast descent. Well, basically we have one little descent and then another small climb, and then we go really, really straight down towards the finish line, which is alongside the Rhône River. We could just see on the shot down there that the river is, of course, there in the valley. So that climb is, I'm going to watch that with interest, because that's going to give us an indication of that final already.
It will give us an indication of the final, but also I'm really curious to see how the riders take it down the descent and the twisty turning in towards the finish line, because there's a few corners in that final 3 kilometers where you really need to be up towards the front. Positioning is really crucial. It could really catch some riders out, and you could start to see splits starting to form. We then have around 10 kilometers of flat when the riders are in the valley before we take on the Mera de Cournas. That's 1.9 kilometers long, average gradient of 8.3%. So we're really seeing a pattern emerge on all of these climbs where almost every climb is double digits in terms of its steep gradient.
Oh, jolly. There it is, the valley of the Rhône River, and we are in the national park here of the Mont d'Ardèche, so the mountains of the Ardèche, which is the department here, and of course also the name giver of this race. Tomorrow we go to the other side of the river, to Drôme, which is also interesting. Today they brought, for example, Hannah, on a Team Cofidis, trying to find them on my start list. Tomorrow they brought, now I'm completely confused. I'm looking at Arkea Samsic, but they are, I read that they brought their sprinter, but they didn't. So I'm now completely confused. Maybe it's tomorrow.
Yeah, with Cofidis today, they've got Guillaume Martin, Eddie Finet, Remy Rocha, Victor Lafay, Axel Mariol, Anthony Perez and Thomas Champion. Brilliant name. Brilliant name for a rider with Champion. Still around 3 kilometers of descending towards the valley, towards the River Rhône for this duo out front here, Remy Cavagna and Valentin Ferron. You can see how beneficial it is for these riders to have already done this descent, knowing where and how fast you can take some of these corners, which line to take. Both of these riders have been sharing the workload very well throughout their breakaway, over 100 kilometers, and you can see from this wonderful helicopter shot just how stretched out the peloton is in the chase behind, all in one long line spread across 350 meters as we head towards one of the lowest points of this region at around 40 meters above sea level. That's where the Ardèche flows into the Rhône. One of the highest points in the region, 1,754 meters up towards Mount Mazin in those mountains. You can see it's a fast pace, Jose.
Yeah, but even higher than I thought it was, 1,700 meters. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the final hour of racing here. There's some really spectacular racing, and I do hope that Remy doesn't take my comment in a bad way. Of course, doing a 47-kilometer solo on this course is absolutely amazing, but think everybody also likes a little bit of a race, and this course is spectacular. We have so many amazing riders here. Jai Hindley, for example, is racing here for Bora Hansgrohe.
I think between the teams who are sitting back at the moment, we haven't seen too much of Bora Hansgrohe yet. Sergio Higuita also could be a brilliant one for Bora Hansgrohe. Jai Hindley, like you say. But there's others as well who are here. Esteban Chavez, we've seen that EF Education Easy Post have been riding and committing to the chase for many kilometers. But also likewise, I'm really curious to see how someone like Matteo Sobrero of Team Jayco Alula does on this course. Romain Bardet, I think if he wants any chance of trying to win the race today. So we see a replay of one of the riders from Trek Segafredo discarding of the clothing, as well as trying to take a beat on.
It's multitasking that luckily went well. It's what we discussed before, Hannah, isn't it? That this is about the moment that a lot of riders are getting rid of their vests or even their jackets because the final is starting. Look at that. These are the vignettes there on the the hills leading up from the Rhone River. Saint-Péray is actually quite a famous wine region. We've got 3 different vintages here. I'm not a wine expert, but Saint-Péray is famous, and it's, if I'm correct, also a cheese, which I'm more interested in, as you may know by now. I do the cheese and I don't do the wine, Hannah. It might be blasphemy, but I'm just not a wine person. I'm a cheese person.
At least you do one of the two.
We had a cheese fondue, a restaurant not far from where we lived a couple of years ago, and they actually had either wine or water. That was the only option they gave. You couldn't get a Coke because having cheese fondue and a Coke, it gets into all sorts of weird concoctions inside your stomach. So it was either wine or nothing. So they were purists in that respect. Tony Galopin is, of course, one of the most experienced riders in the peloton. A man who wore the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, won stages in the Tour, and is now one of those super strong domestiques, doing a lot of work for Trek Segafredo, as we are in the town of Saint-Péray, on our way to the Sommet du Val d'Anvers. It's a short one, but it's Mur de Huy steep. I think the gradients are comparable to what we are going to see in a couple of weeks in Flèche Wallonne.
Certainly is. The maximum on that climb around 13%. Gain, the elevation gain to there is around 260 meters, so 1.9 kilometers long, average of 8.3%.
1:40 all of a sudden for our 2 leaders, Rémi Cavagna and Valentin Ferron. Cavagna is a man who is 27. He was born in August of 1995, and it was pretty clear straight from the start that he had a very strong time trial. He also did a little bit of mountain biking. He is from Clermont-Ferrand, and if I recall correctly, that is the place where we're going to start the Tour de France Femmes this year, in the city of Clermont-Ferrand. So that is, if you look at the middle of France, a little bit to the south of there, it's going to be an absolutely epic edition going into the Pyrenees. But that is a side note. He is from Clermont-Ferrand in the department of Puy-de-Dôme, the volcanic region there. So perfect mountain biking terrain. But he went on to go for road cycling. Excellent time trialist, and a winner, of course, of the French national title as well. Rémi Cavagna has been with the team of Patrick Lefevre for a while now. He started his career with the development team that was still out there. They do have a development team again now, but in 2016 it was called after Patrick Lefevre's favorite wine, Klein Constantia. So he's from that development team in 2016 and joined the World Tour at a pretty young age, and has been with the Belgian team ever since.
You see the damage that Trek Segafredo are doing through Sampere
team time
at the
trial,
moment.
isn't it?
With two, it is, and it's two distinct groups. You can just see that second group coming through the roundabout with several riders who are desperately chasing to try and get themselves back into this first group of the peloton.
It's Galopin, followed by Julien Bernard, followed by Galopin, and we're looking out for the man with number 61. He is on a very fast track in his career, Matthias Schelmose. On his wheel we find the former world champion Julian Alaphilippe. Also moving to the front is Rui Costa, who also had a win this season. It's been a while that he won a race, but he's one of those older riders that they really got going again with Intermarché-Wanty winning a race again. There he is, Julian Alaphilippe. Interesting from today's column in Het Nieuwsblad by Nicky Terpstra about the comments by Lefebvre to Julian Alaphilippe, is that Nicky Terpstra said, yeah, Patrick has been doing this for 20 years. He almost word for word said the same to me. Isn't it about time that, in this case, Julian Alaphilippe should start winning? And he think it motivates, and Terpstra kind of agrees with that, because you shouldn't be motivated by these words he said in his column, but you do. And maybe it works with Alaphilippe as well, but I think, and this is something that a former colleague of mine said, Dave Everett, I think he will be with Team TotalEnergies next year. They're racing specialised. Peter Sagan's salary is not necessary anymore. On a French team, a French captain, I think it is a logical step, especially since Soudal Quickstep are morphing more and more into a Grand Tour squad and need climbers. And not that Alaphilippe is not a climber, just like Terpstra said in his column, Julien can do anything on a good day. Win time trials, win classics, win world championships. But yeah, I think he might leave the team after this year. I've got a feeling about that.
When you see Julien Alaphilippe happy, he's always able to perform. It doesn't matter what the type of terrain. And when he's really happy with his environment, with himself, he feels in good shape. He can do everything. And like you just said, Jose, whether that's on climbs, in Grand Tours, one-day races, time trialing, he's quite a complete rider. I think when things aren't going right, though, as you can just see him up towards the front in this group, when things aren't going to plan and he's not feeling too good,
can you blame him?
He's never able to pull it off. Absolutely not.
Can you blame him? You've seen that crash last year in Liège. You were on commentary that day. It was absolutely horrific, and it took him a really, really long time to get back up to speed. And the talent and panache of somebody like Alaphilippe is not gone. It's still there, and he will show us again what he's capable of. 58 seconds. It's almost time that Bernard and Galopin have done their job. It's now up to Nadnel Tesfacion, the new rider for the team from Eritrea, to do a little bit of work at the front. And look at that. You can't go any further to the left there on the bike there of Valentin Ferron. These are the 13% kind of gradients that, yeah, look at that. This is what it is. Côte du Val d'Envers, 1.7, average 9.3, max 14%. This is smallest cog that you can possibly put on your bike. Great shot here. You can actually see from this shot, Hannah, how steep it is.
And just how much elevation that they've gained since climbing out of Saint-Péray. It's a very, very steep climb, but also they've got the wind in their favour here. It's a tailwind all the way up this climb as we start to see a move from Arkea Samsic at the moment, but still Trek Segafredo just keep it at their own tempo, their own rhythm.
They will catch the two leaders, and then a completely new race is going to start. Trek Segafredo, I hope for them that Matthias Schelmose can really finish it off, because they have really, well, I think, contributed to the chase. 70%, done most work. Of course, EF Education have done a lot of work, and I must add, we haven't seen the peloton 100% of the time. It might just be a coincidence that we just saw Trek Segafredo at the front, but they have put in a lot of work in reeling these two Frenchmen back in. So let's hope for them that Matthias Skelmose can really reap the benefits of all the work his teammates have done. They only started with 6 riders, so one rider short. Because there's a lot of illness going around the peloton. We see that in Belgium, we see it in France. Not so much in the UAE Tour because it's a lot warmer there. Ooh, bit of a problem there for the television motorbike. Completely to a standstill there. That is a little bit of a problem for Motor 2, so we might be left without any images of the peloton for a little while, because they have to get that one going. 31 seconds as we are almost on the top of this climb, just on the outskirts of Saint-Péray. The vineyards are waiting for a new spring and summer, but our 2 leaders are there, and they're not that far back. I think I remember this climb actually from Paris-Nice last year, but I'm not completely sure if we've done it last year in Paris-Nice. We have been here quite often in both the Tour de France and Paris-Nice, and of course this is a fantastic climb, the Côte de Val d'Anvers, and yet again it translates as Valley of Hell. This is it, the top of the climb, and then we have a very short descent and then a little bit of a climb up, just a very short one, and then this is the most important point, because in the next lap this is going to be at 6 kilometers from the finish line, and those 6 kilometers are very technical downhill.
And you just saw a slight glimpse then of the breakaway duo, who now have 28 seconds on that descent, and just how narrow it is. We're almost on to single track farm roads, really. So you can see how crucial positioning will be.
Yeah, this is the roads normally used by the wine farmers, and that's it. These are not like through roads that are used quite often. So you can also see the edges of the road, Hannah, that they just end abruptly. So if you just off the edge of the road, you're just either in the sand or in a ditch.
There's quite literally no runoff, is there, for the riders? And as you can see, even just with one bike, as you see some of these nasty turns and corners, that it just shows how important, because you can see how much quicker Trek Segafredo were able to carry their speed through that corner. But then there's a knock-on effect at the back of that group, and just how strung out things are now. You're losing time, you're losing places, you end up having to make up the gaps later on. And I think if you're so far back on that final ascent and on this descent, consequently, it's incredibly difficult to come back from that.
One of the riders who could do an absolute stellar descent here is Julian Alaphilippe. I am very confident in his ability. Sadly, we don't have Nielsen Paulus in this race, the man who is a master descender. We saw that in La Marseillaise, we saw it in Étoile de Bessèges, and we saw it again in Haute-Var. Shame that he's not here, because this would be a perfect race for him. The final 6 kilometers, or actually the final 5 kilometers, because this is that little incline after the actual top of the climb, just a little bit, but just enough to kind of force you to go back to the small ring for this little ditty, and then it's straight down towards the river on, like you explained, farm roads. That's exactly what this is. But then if we look at the final, Hannah, the final few kilometers in the town, what did they look like? In France, you normally have like 1 million roundabouts.
We do have a few roundabouts, actually, in the final 3 kilometers. With around 3 kilometers to go, there's another slight kicker, upwards of 10% gradient, but it's that we have some sharp double bends that back onto yourself. As I say, one of the first roundabouts comes just as you go through 2 kilometers to go. Again, another one at 1 kilometer to go. Then you have a sharp right-hand turn with 500 meters to go. And it's the final roundabout that comes with around 250 meters until the finish line, which is going to be crucial. So it's they do love a roundabout, the road furniture as well. But again, that positioning just crucial for the riders. The wind coming on to the left-hand shoulder of the riders into this finish.
Look at these glorious images. We have lost the motorbike that is supposed to be with the peloton, so hopefully they will get it going. A little bit of a technical problem there on that steepest part of the climb. I don't know anything about motorbikes, so I probably cannot tell you what went wrong, but yeah, it takes a little bit of time to get it going, just like a car when you have to do your uphill thingy. I was stranded in Strade Bianche on Le Tolve, that last bit of gravel, the last gravel section before you go into Siena, and my car it just stopped, and it was on that 13% part. So I was way ahead.
No way you're getting going again.
It was really difficult, but luckily I was a little bit of a damsel in distress there, and a lot of guys helped me out, and I got it going again on the climb. So I can imagine the panic that the motorbike or the pilot there has on that climb, because of course we want images back, and this is a great road to get back to the front. We're into the town there of Guilherand-Grange, so on the west bank of the river. I never really know whether it's the left or the right bank. It has to do with the direction of the river, whether it's the right or the left bank. So I just call it the western side to make my life easier. Really, really wide roads, and Hannah, if we look at this, it looks like there is a little bit of crosswind going on right here.
And also it's looking like that chase where it's been a real concerted chase that you can see now. Trek Segafredo taking a look behind, likewise with Lotto Destiny, just trying to allow those riders who've been distanced to come back and then regain the chase. No one really wanting to take things up at the moment as we're now onto this larger road.
We haven't really mentioned UAE. This is the first time we see them at the front right now. They're here with Diego Ulissi, who of course is one of the riders who could actually do really well in a course like this. George Bennett is here, Finn Fisher-Black, Ryan Gibbons and Davide Formolo. Felix Roos abandoned after 5 kilometers today. And this is it. This is the name giver of our race. And there you have it, all the waste disposal, garbage trucks and road cleaning equipment. That's what they produce, as we can see here. Somebody's got to produce a garbage truck. It's also a business, and it's great that they support a race like this. Almost over and out to 40 kilometers to go for our breakaway of the day. Rémi Gavagna, Valentin Ferron, and the gap was really, really stable up until about 70 kilometers from the finish line, when it was mostly Trek Segafredo doing the work there with Julien Bernard and Tony Galopin. These are nice wide roundabouts, Hannah. These are French roundabouts.
They are.
But it looks like they have a little bit of a headwind. It looks like they have a little bit of a headwind here in the final, which is absolutely detrimental to any escape.
And hence why nobody probably wanted to take it up on that wide road moments ago, where nobody wants to be doing that workload into such a strong, gusty headwind. And there you go. See, 24 kilometers per hour at the moment, directly into the face.
Attack there by Frederik Vandal. Frederik Vandal is our attacker. Also, Madsen is part of this group, as is Ramses de Bruyne. A little bit of a mix of the development and not World Tour anymore. A little bit of a mix of the development and pro team for Lotto Destiny here. Ramses de Bruyne is a youngster from their development team. Yeah, this is going to be really, really interesting, because if you want to attack over the hill, over the Val d'Envers sommet, you really have to have a pretty decent gap to survive these last 3 kilometers with a headwind. I think it's going to be almost impossible, actually.
Where we've seen in the past that we've had solo victors here in the FAUN-ARDÈCHE, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult. It's not to say it can or can't still happen, but I think it'll be incredibly difficult for a solo rider or even a duo to stay away until the finale. Certainly a smaller group where could if they were fully committed, could stay away if there was a chasing group or peloton behind.
Somebody's blowing bubbles at the finish line. soapy bubbles there. Really great. Yeah, maybe we should have a look at the fast man. I was a little bit confused earlier on. I thought Arkea had brought Bouhanni, but I think he's going to race tomorrow, because tomorrow they see more of a chance actually to have the possibility of a bunch sprint. So I think we should look at riders like, for example, Quinn Simmons, who can stay with a group on that climb, but also has the pure strength to stay away or to be a winner of a small group sprint. Which names stand out for you if we look at that scenario?
If we look at some of the faster riders, let's say, or those who can win from a smaller group, potentially Andrea Baggioli, Julien Alaphilippe, of course, that we've already mentioned him on a number of occasions from Soudal Quickstep. I have to say, Rui Costa, in the form that he's in and how impressive his start to the season has been, I was in complete awe and admiration when we were at Volta Valencia a couple of weeks ago. The way that he went on to take that final stage victory and consequently take the overall. Likewise with Lorenzo Rota from Intermarché, I think it's certainly not out of his realm to be able to take the victory today. But also, I guess, Parapentra, after his victory.
It's just, you read my mind. That was actually somebody I wanted to add. In sync. I wanted to add to your. He was really impressive in the Tour des Alpes-Maritimes et du Var only last weekend. You already mentioned Sobrero, but can he really carry his rather small weight in a sprint? That is the question.
Yeah, I think when it comes to a sprint, I wouldn't be convinced. A rider who can climb extremely well, but also has an exceptional sprint on him, a real great turn of speed, is Stevie Williams, the British rider for Israel Premier Tech. He was racing in Argentina.
Mm-hmm. And got a really late contract, did he? It was really touch and go there for him.
It was. But thankfully he's been able to find a home at Israel Premier Tech, and it's certainly one to watch. This type of race where it's short, steep, punchy racing, the climbs suit him very, very well, but also from a small group, like I say, incredibly fast, great turn of speed. I think back to his stage victory in the Tour de Suisse last year, where he took everybody by surprise. It was quite an emphatic victory.
Well, everything is back together at 36.3 kilometers to go here in the FAUN-ARDÈCHE Classic, a race that started early this century. The first edition was actually in 2001, when it was just a very small race, but gradually it became more important. And if you look at this year, we have 13 World Tour teams at the start line, which is pretty impressive. No, 12. Israel Premier Tech, of course, not a World Tour team anymore. 12 and Lotto Destiny and Israel Premier Tech, the two teams who are ambitious to go to the World Tour, as is X. Filippo Zanna there, the Italian national champion. He is a rider to look out for as well in this race. We're looking at Sebastian Reichenbach, the Swiss rider, in that lovely kit of Tudor Post Cycling, the national champion of Sweden, Lukas Eriksson, and with number 41. It's the winner of 2021, David Gaudu. He was on the podium with Clément Champouzin. He's here as well with his new team, and that is Team Arkea Samsic. We saw a little bit of an attack from one of the riders from Arkea Samsic. That was the young man from Brittany, Ewan Costiou, very active last year in the Tour de l'Avenir. And Diego Ulissi there with number 1. We have talked about Aurélien Parepintre, Godon, Peters, Venturini, of course, is a man who could do well in a small group sprint. And so far, the season has not been hugely successful for AG2R, with one victory only. And one cyclocross national champion, but one road victory, and that was only last week.
when you take a look at how many victories some teams have had already and so early on in the season, Intermarché springs to mind immediately, as does EF Education Easy Post. Some have really just got off to a flying start. Others, it's taken a little bit longer. So, see what we were talking about before, the road, how it just ends. The edges, it's not a smooth part to be in. This is where you could certainly pick up punctures. See the rider there from Uno X.
A lot of
just trying to get out of that part.
Yeah, a lot of shoulder barging going on there with Alaphilippe. He was basically pulling up his socks there, which is they're not too high. They are absolutely not too high, Julien. Shouldn't worry about that. Total Energy, of course, they have other cards to play with our local man, Pierre Latour, who is an absolute specialist when it comes to steepness, just like Alexei Viermos is. They have Cabot, Doubet, Jouzaume and Orselin, but of course we're looking out mostly to Viermos and Pierre Latour. He's on the wheel there of the rider of Intermarché 1T, Pierre Latour. Natnael Tesfation is the rider at the front. Pace is down a little bit and we're waiting for new attacks, and it looks like Lotto Destiny want to control a little bit. They have interesting riders here. Andreas Kroon, of course, is a rider who could finish this off rather brilliantly, but also look at Lennart van Eetveld, who did really well at the start of the season. And also Harry Sweeney was really strong on, I think it was on Mallorca. He didn't do the Tour Down Under for the first time in a while. So he was really strong on Mallorca. So they have cards to play as well with Lotto Destiny.
And I think if they want to go long, they also have Maxime van Gils, the 23-year-old Belgian rider, who also another rider to throw into the mix for Lotto Destiny.
Interesting enough, he asked yet again to not do a Grand Tour this year, despite the fact that he's 23. He said, I just don't want to do it. This is Romain Bardet. He won in 2018 ahead of Maximilian Schachmann and Lilian Calmejean. But Bardet, he is always up there and thereabouts, but winning races it just doesn't come easy to him. Which is sad because he's a fantastic rider, but it's just really, really hard for him to win bike races. And he is 32 right now. He has a fantastic career, but only 10 wins.
10 wins when you take a look at the wins that he's had. But when you take a look at the caliber of the wins with stages in the Tour de France and the Vuelta, it's quite... It's a spectacular career for him, and it's been a long career that he's had. But like you say, because he's such a specialist, and I think also he's always had that focus.
We have a problem there. We jinxed him.
Front wheel puncture.
And it's his teammate actually trying to help, and that is Romain Combeau. They came as a package deal to Team DSM. They are good friends. They joined the team together. And because everything was a little bit coming back together, the team cars also had to catch up with the riders. But he's got a new bike.
And by the looks of things, their car was quite far back in the convoy as well, because they had to wait a long time for the car just then. And as we head towards the next climb, the Mur de Cornas, such terrible timing for Romain Bardet.
Yeah, but this is a really great gesture there by the sports manager of UNO-X, Jesper Mørkø, because he's helping a rider from another team. He really stays close. Of course, Jesper's been a bike rider himself. He knows how to drive a car and to protect the rider. And this is really, this is sportsmanship. This is really nice of him to do.
It certainly is. And one day, the UNO-X will probably need the favour repaying, and DSM will be very happy to help them out.
Yeah, it's a small world, the pro cycling world, and you're meeting each other almost every week during the season. So if you make enemies, it's just not great. But this is great sportsmanship from UNO-X. 136 there, all the way at the bottom of your screen, is Lennart van Eetveld, one of those riders from their own development team. they're bringing on riders from their development team throughout the season. Jarne van der Paar is a man who joined at the end of January, repaying the favor straight away with a podium place in Mallorca in a sprint. And they also announced that the time trial European champion Alex Segaert is coming over straight away. So they have almost like an limitless, endless supply of young talent there with the Lotto Destiny team. And of course, if you have a reputation of being good to your riders, to give them a pathway into the World Tour, a lot of young riders will apply to be part of your team. Looks like we also had a little bit of a mechanical issue here for Martinez. We have Ladanius part of this group. I think the tall guy must be Armirai. They're also trying to come back. Maybe a mechanical problem there for Martinez, the super young pocket climber there with number 44 of Groupama FDG, one of the 9 riders who came through the ranks of their own development team. 9 in one go, Hannah. Just completely deplete your own development team and go World Tour. It is indeed Bruno Armirai.
I think it shows the success.
Yeah, this man is always in for a little bit of a joke. Anton Paltzer comes from a completely different background, but is really enjoying himself in the peloton there with Bora Hansgrohe. A little bit of a train there. Also Bardet with his teammate moving to the front there. It's Milesi who is with him. Of course, it was Romain Combeau giving the wheel. But yeah, it looks like the peloton is absolutely not slowing down, Hannah. So coming back to that peloton when all the action is about to start, because we're on our way to the Mur du Cornas.
And I feel like they're going to rejoin just at that point where we start the climb. And it's going to take a lot out of the legs for these riders. They're currently on that wider road, which, beneficial, helpful to them. They do have the convoy to use and to make their way back to the peloton. But already we're starting to climb. Soudal Quickstep on the right with the blue jersey, Lotto Destiny with the red jersey at the moment, and it's such a shame for Romain Bardet, just as we were talking about him, that he's this year not having that focus on the general classification of a Grand Tour and perhaps wanting to win some more races, as we were just saying.
We saw Dries Devenijns at the front of the peloton, the lieutenant of Remco Evenepoel, and Julien Alaphilippe, a really trustworthy teammate that is going to great lengths for his captain, even that far that when we had the World Championships in Imola, that was 2020, I think, he said to the national coach of Belgium, I don't want to be selected for the national team because I don't want to race against Julien Alaphilippe. It just doesn't feel good. He's really that teammate of Alaphilippe. You mentioned him, Cavagna, of course. He's been doing a whole lot of work, and this is a really difficult time. It looks like they have managed to get back, as also Devenijns has done his job there for Julien Alaphilippe. It looks like Bardet and Martinez managed to come back, because we saw the 2 lieutenants of Groupama FDG just getting dropped there. So hopefully they just delivered their rider to the front, or to the tail end of the group actually, and hoping that they will survive this climb and manage to get back.
You'd hope so, but I'm quite surprised to see Martin Tusveld already start to be distanced and going backwards.
Yeah, he is, of course, a fantastic climber, and also one of these reliable riders that they always call last minute to be part of teams. Last year he was almost called up for his 3rd Grand Tour of the year in the Vuelta, but he was pretty relieved that he didn't have to. So he did the Giro and the Tour last year. A little bit of off-road riding there for Champouzin, who was on the podium 2 years ago, 2nd place for him. And this is a pretty steep climb, but Champouzin is, look at that, he is making his way through the ranks. But these roads, Hannah, you described it before, it's so difficult to move up.
difficult to move up on the run into the climbs, on the climbs, then on the descents. You see the narrow nature of this very climb and just how steep the gradients are when you're making those turns. Again, we're into those farm roads that are predominantly only ever used by those where you can see the vineyards here.
And crazy bike riders.
and crazy bike riders, all the local ones. Let's see what's happening here. Border Hansgrohe decides maybe that's enough for today and turns around.
I'm just going back. Chain drop there for Champouzin, but he's back on the bike. Quinn Simmons is looking really, really solid, but I do expect he's doing the work here for Matthias Skelmoser. And it's certainly an indication that he won't be or one of the protected riders at Trek Segafredo, whilst the finale suits him very, very well. I think they're so confident in Matthias Skelmoser after his recent victory. What a fantastic climb this is to look at, not to do. And our group is getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
I'm wondering if a few riders are having some problems here. You can see almost coming to a standstill. There's a couple of riders. Whether it's just the steepness, I mean, this is...
But look at how strong Quinn Simmons is. That we have Bajoli still here, and of course Alaphilippe. I think Alaphilippe is looking pretty solid. Gaudu is on his wheel there. We also have the man from Arkea Samsic. I think that is Gisbert. Almost at the top of the climb, and I think Julien Alaphilippe just catapulted himself into top favourite. But Rui Costa, in his days that he won those Tour de France stages, Hannah, he did it after some spectacular descents. Just giving it as a little bit of information, he was, back in the day that he won those Tour stages, a master descender. And he is, of course, in grand form. And you know, just as well as I do, bike riding is, of course, about physical ability, but it's about mental ability as well. And Rui Costa, he said about his time at UAE, I could never do my own thing. I felt limited by the team. And now with the Intermarché team, he feels much more liberated and feels that he can win bike races again. And that does something to the mind.
It's psychologically, it's such a huge thing for riders. You could still be in just as good a shape as you were the year before when he was in UAE for several years, but having that fresh environment, new staff, new coaches, new equipment, everything, a new fresh start for some riders is really the lift in their career that they really need. And sometimes it's the new challenges that come with that, new opportunities of new races as well. So it's brilliant to see how many riders, when they make a transition, I think back Romain Bardet being one of those, when he made the move from AG2R to Team DSM, they just have, like you say, the liberation of having a change in teams.
Yeah, stellar start to the season for Rui Costa with that stage win in Valencia. He's 36 already, the former world champion. That was in Florence, I think, that he became world champion with Joaquim Rodriguez and Alejandro Valverde, who were on the same country, but of course Valverde was on the same team. So a lot of issues there, but it was Rui Costa wearing that jersey. Now we are going down the Mur de Cornas, which is, well, this way, just as steep as it is the other way, although it's a little bit shorter. Oh man, Quinn. Yeah, the motorbike can hardly. Yeah, this is scary stuff.
We're talking about the steep. We're talking about the steep gradients on the ascent.
Yeah, but it's just as bad on the other side.
The descent, just as bad the other side, but even worse. Some parts we're looking at minus 17% in terms of that descent. So incredibly technical, as you just saw. You can certainly overshoot things.
David Gaudu currently in third position there, followed by Matthias Skelmoser. Quinn Simmons is there to be the talent. We have Rui Costa there. Van Eetveld is there as well. I think it's Nans Peters for the AG2R, but we'll have to take a little bit of a closer look there on the rider of AG2R. EF Education, Easy Post. Aking has done well in the past in these races. He was third in 2019, so he knows these. He knows the course. He knows these kind of hills, and one of the riders to look out for, the Norwegian rider of the EF Education. But I think we have maybe 20 riders in that first group, and then it starts to break again as we climb again, because we basically start our climb to Saint-Romain-des-Laires, which is a climb of 10 kilometers, I think you said before, all in all.
All in all, it is a total of 10 kilometers, because from what we saw before, it's the different side to what we saw them do on 2 occasions already. But still, with the steep gradients, as has been the story of the day here.
There we are with the Soudal Quickstep, led here by the enigmatic Davide Bramati. It's always good to have a little bit of a camera in the car when we have Grand Tours and have that footage as well. I always love that. It's really, really great. Andreas Kroon is also still part of this first group, and one of the riders of Team DSM. I wonder if Bardet managed to come back, or maybe it could be Matt Dinham, the Australian rider. We haven't had a close look just yet.
It could be Bardet.
Yeah, that would be really impressive if it is. But
would be impressive.
The motorbike, understandably, is taking a little bit more distance now on our riders after that near miss that we had with Quinn Simmons. Looking at this group there, I think actually it might be Dinham. We have a few riders there of Cofidis, Guillaume Martin, absolutely part of that group. Also the small stature of Rémi Rochas is part of that group as well. I would say it's Victor Lafay. So still 3 riders for Team Cofidis as well in that first group. There they are. Rémi Rochas is pretty recognizable as one of the smallest riders in the peloton. And the first part of this climb is actually the steepest, as you can see. It's about 8%, and then it becomes a little bit easier in the second half, although not considerably easy, because from 8% it goes to 7%. Hooray! Everybody will be thrilled. But this is and then we have another really, really technical descent, and then that last climb of FAUN-ARDÈCHE. It's still an open race, but the amount of contenders for the final win is now down to 15, 20? No more than that, with Alaphilippe being...
And dropping.
Yeah, and dropping, exactly. Alaphilippe is really, really strong here, with Ilan van Wilder, who was, of course, also instrumental in the Vuelta win of Remco Evenepoel. And he's the kind of rider, Hannah, he said it in a few interviews during the Vuelta as well, that really likes working for others. And, of course, working for the likes of Alaphilippe or Evenepoel must be hugely rewarding, because they do win big things. And being part of that winning team in the Vuelta was, of course, a tremendous experience. But, yeah, he's really impressive, Van Wilder. But Alaphilippe, we might see the first win of the season coming up for the Frenchman.
I think it tells a lot about a rider when they're so open about how happy they are to work for others. They're so selfless. They know that they can commit themselves and dedicate themselves to their main leaders. And for Ilan van Wilder, as you just mentioned, Jose, we saw it in the Vuelta, the way that he committed himself to Remco Evenepoel in winning that overall classification, and such a huge honour for the 22-year-old.
Look at that.
For him to be working for such champions.
Gaudu is behind Alaphilippe, then Skelmose, then Rui Costa. I think it's Lorenzo Rota with him. We have Chavez still in this group, which would be absolutely wonderful to see him win a bike race. Of course, I have seen the footage on the internet of his Colombian national champion with that fantastic Colombian commentary that is so enthusiastic, and the tears on the podium. It was absolutely wonderful. And Chavez said that winning the national championship of Colombia means that he can be the ambassador of Colombia for an entire year, that people know that he's from that country, that he can represent his country, which meant so much to him. And they give him a rather wonderful jersey as well. And that helmet, I love the helmet.
I think he's done such a tremendous job for Colombian cycling already, and he's such a likable character, a likable racer as well. And I think for many people, when they saw, when people saw that he'd won that national championships and just how emotional he was as Alain Van Wilde pulls off, he leaves it all to Julian Alaphilippe now.
Shaking his head. It was pretty. There was this little glance between the two.
Go time.
Yeah, it was a little glance between the two about a kilometre ago, and you could see almost invisibly that no from Ilan van Wilde. I can't do any more. So now we're down to Julian Alaphilippe and David Gaudu. Schelmose is racing intelligently here, tries to keep his own pace, not to go into the red too much. Of course, we're racing at 8-9% gradients here, so it's quite easy to go into the red. But this is a pretty impressive attack by Alaphilippe, because look at that. This is a steep part, and the rest of the peloton is a losing ground here, with Schelmose in second place and all the riders really cracking under the pressure. Gaudu taking over from Alaphilippe at the front.
And still around 4 kilometres remain of this climb. So he's timed it well, and if Alaphilippe can really break them, as you see the gaps start to open up, and Gaudu on the front now, nobody really wanting to commit from behind. You could just see there Esteban Chavez looking over his shoulder, because they also want assistance. They don't want to have to do all this work alone, and many riders who were in that reduced group of around 12, 15 riders, they also don't have one of their helpers alongside them, a domestique or one of those who can do the chasing and really commit themselves.
Michael Woods there for the Israel Premier Tech team, distanced from that first group. And it looks like we had a little bit of a counter-attack from one of the EF Education Easy Post riders. Might be Aiking, might be Honoré. We'll have to look at that a little bit closely. Like you said a little while ago, Hannah, he's only done 3 race days, Julian Alaphilippe, shaking his head there. He's got a very busy program. Returning to the Tour of Flanders, of course, a couple of years ago that ended rather disastrous for him, but he's returning to Flanders. But first he's going to, he's going to race tomorrow. He's going to race Strade Bianche, which is next Saturday. I'm so crazy excited about that. Tirreno is up, Milan-San Remo, and then he goes to Belgium for the Belgian Sprint Classics, Amstel Gold Race, Liège, and of course the Tour de France. It's not a contract year, by the way, for Alaphilippe. I thought it was a contract year, but he has got another year on his contract with Soudal Quickstep. So my little thesis about him moving to Total Direct Energies and taking that place for Sagan was just my thinking. It was not based on reality then, because he's with another year with the team. And he has been with the team since he started his career, Hannah. He was on the development team there when he was just, I think, 19 or 20. But can I say that I think that Gaudu has a better poker face than Alaphilippe has? And that
this is what I'm trying to work out here.
That jump onto the wheel of Alaphilippe from Gaudu was rather impressive. There we have some chasers. One of the riders there for EF Education. We have Paret Peintre there, I think, for the AG2R team. Yes. It's also Guillaume Martin, judging from his racing. And it should be Schelmose then for Trek Segafredo. I haven't identified the rider for EF Education. Could be one of the riders from Ecuador, still with full bike leg warmers, etc.
I was going to say, could it potentially be Honoré, but I think by your thesis there of the full leg warmers and long jacket.
Direct Velo indeed confirms it's Jefferson Cepeda, the man from Ecuador, who was in a little bit of a counterattack. But he still had his jacket on, he still had his leg warmers on, so maybe he was not even the designated person to do that attack. Otherwise, he would have discarded at least the jacket. I do spot Romain Bardet here with number 111. We also have Felix Gall, the rider from Austria, had a good run in the French races as well. Romain Grégoire is part of that group for Groupama FDJ. The gaps are not really that big, but we're still about half now. We're nearing the end. We're over halfway onto this climb. But Alaphilippe is a wonderful descender, as is Gaudu. But we must remember that the final 3 kilometers are a block headwind. So if the 2 chasing groups come together, it's 8 or 9 riders versus 2 at the front. So it's not over after the climbing.
It's certainly not. It's certainly not. And I think into that final 5 kilometers, they've got to have at least 45 seconds of an advantage, this duo, if they want any chance of trying to take the victory. Because with that block headwind, and if there is a concerted chase and they do get themselves organised behind, I think they'll certainly have the better strength over just 2 into that strong headwind.
Four chasers with Cepeda, Victor Lafayette leading. Aurélien Parapintre is part of this group as well. And then we have the group with Rota, with Rui Costa, with Bardet, with Grégoire. It looks like these 2 groups might merge. And it's just a better situation with the headwind that we have. They're not that far back. 26 seconds is a nice margin, especially since we still have that super steep Côte du Val d'Anvers to go. But I think they need a little bit more for the final 3 kilometers. Gaudu and Alaphilippe, the 2 French riders. Gaudu has only done 3 race days so far in the Tour des Alpes-Maritimes et du Var. Alaphilippe has done 3 race days as well. So these riders, of course, are both building towards the Tour de France, which is going to be the most important race of their season. But Gaudu, of course, will also be in races like Liège and Flèche Wallonne, which he actually did really well with the top 10 in the most recent edition. This is Guillaume Martin with number 51. Number 25 is Lorenzo Rota. His teammate is at the front. Sergio Higuita, there he is, our Colombian rider for Bora Hansgrohe. We have Bardet in this group, Felix Gall, Grégoire, and kind of missed Rui Costa right now. This is that first chasing group with Lafayette, with Cepeda, with Aurélien Parapintre and Matthias Skelmoser. So they're 26 seconds down on our leaders, but there is the group, I think, looks like Michael Woods there, with Chavez and with Rui Costa. There he is. Michael Woods making his way back to the front right now. Good to see the Canadian. Well, our clock is stuck at the 26-second margin. Maybe we can hand count the difference at the top of the climb, as these horses seem completely unfazed by the spectacle. Okay, bye, I'm gone. Oh, they are a little bit impressed. Oh, they're putting on a show for us. Oh, that is very kind. Final bottle and a gel. Great to see that. Of course, we still have 1 climb to go. So Alaphilippe thinks it's 21k to go. I don't need a full bottle. I'm just getting rid of a little bit of weight because we have a very steep climb to go. Another spectacular little piece of architecture there. That chapel on the hill. Oh, I love this. Might be a great place to get married. Although you might just only invite 5 people.
Spectacular views from the top.
Most definitely, but not a big party, because it probably fits 5 people in the chapel. And the dog. And the kids.
Love it.
Oh, I love it. I love a little bit of wildlife. A dog is not wildlife, but a little bit of animal action. A border collie there. Very happy chappy, or girl. The Belvedere du Pic. Belvedere is, of course, a vantage point. Exactly that. 30 seconds now for our 2 leaders. 30 seconds for Julian Alaphilippe and David Gaudu. And then our chasing group that has now come back together. As we are in Saint-Romain-des-Laires, meaning we are 20 kilometers from the finish line. And now, after this village, another really, really fast descent, all the way to the foot of the Côte de Val d'Enfer. Great race so far. Still open. It's still not decided, in my opinion. Although 30 seconds is a nice margin, Hannah.
It is. It's a nice margin. Like I said before, I think if they want any chance of staying away until the finish, you've kind of got to be around that 40, hovering around 40, 45 second marker to be able to hold off the group from behind, especially into that headwind. And having seen the Border Hansgrohe have 2 riders in that chasing group, they have resources to use up and use in that chase.
I wonder who the second rider is for Bora Hansgrohe. Of course, we have seen Sergio Higuita. Anton Paltzer was not that far back, but also Kian Uiterbroeks was not that far back. Of course, he's a lot taller than Jai Hindley, so we should be able to spot the difference between the 2. But these are our leaders going into descent, and the rules of cycling learn that in the descent, you usually don't lose a lot of time. If you're a good descender, you might actually win a little bit of time. There's bike races won on the descents. Look at Nielsen Paulus earlier this year in Marseillaise. But of course, famous example is also Chris Froome in the Tour de France, attacking on top of the climb, looking at Quintana, who was absolutely not expecting it. And then Froome went down and won the stage, and another yellow jersey. Gaudu, Alaphilippe, 2 of the most prominent champions from France. Gaudu, of course, a man who is eyeing a place on the podium in the Tour de France. And Alaphilippe is eyeing some, well, maybe a yellow jersey again, could be nice. Those stages there in the Basque Country, Hannah, could be absolutely wonderful for somebody like him. But he's, of course, looking at the classics. Gaudu, she might remember, just off the podium last year in the Tour de France in 4th place, the Frenchman. Here we are with our chasers. 2 riders there for EF Education, Jefferson Cepeda, Esteban Chavez, Matthias Skelmose. We have Grégoire for Groupama FDJ, Rui Costa for Intermarché, Aurélien Parepintre, Romain Bardet, part of this group as well. And the man from Cofidis is the better descender. Sadly for Pierre Latour, well, there was a rider for Total Energie. Is he at the front of this group, or is that Michael Woods? I can't see. And all of a sudden, Hannah, it's 44 seconds for our leaders, what the GPS gives. We do need a little bit of a better timing point. But 44 seconds is hugely promising for Alaphilippe and Gaudu.
Seeing how well they've worked together as well and built this lead despite four riders trying to bridge across to them, that wasn't successful. And when you looked at that, the 4 riders who were trying to come across, Cepeda being one of them, and not being able to close the gap to the duo of Alaphilippe and Gaudu, it's almost as we come towards the top and the crest of that climb. And on this climb, in the final few hundred meters, it plateaus. Then we've got that long descent before we take on the final steep climb again.
And that climb takes us to double-digit gradients, but this gap is going up to the minute for Gaudu and Alaphilippe. Alaphilippe, of course, from Saint-Amand-de-Montrond, which is bang in the middle of France. And David Gaudu, the man leading at the moment, he's a youngster and comes all the way from the most western part of France, in Brittany, in Finistère. "49 seconds for our two leaders," as we get a little bit of an idea of the speed on the descent here. Great camera work to give us that low view, how fast this actually goes. And I thought it was pretty funny, Hannah, to see that clip of Thomas Pidcock, and then Mathieu van der Poel's mum commenting on Twitter, at Mathieu van der Poel, "You are not going to do this." So a little bit of advice from his mother: "You are not going to do this." But of course, a great addition to that clip by Thomas Pidcock is that he said later on Instagram, this comes from hours and hours and hours of frolicking around with my mates. We had done a recon of this climb, and being his humble self as always, Pidcock.
He's such a remarkable talent rider, young man, and his descending skills are exceptional. We saw that already in the Tour de France last year when he went on to win his first stage of the Tour de France up Alpe d'Huez, and the way that he bridged across on that descent, and looking at that, and the video that was posted a couple of days ago, incredible. But even looking at this duo now,
it's not bad.
It's not bad at all. It's not bad at all. And Alaphilippe gapping David Gaudu on some of the sharper of the corners, and on a descent like this, the two leaders and the chasing group, they're only going to be going more or less the same speed. So it's going to be incredibly difficult for the chasers to do any damage to the time gap at the moment. Absolutely.
But Alaphilippe also, in my opinion, has to stay with Gaudu as long as possible, because they still have that block headwind to contend in the final 3 kilometers when we get all the way down to the shores of the River Rhône in our finish place. And it's about 24-25 kilometers an hour block headwind, and it's always nicer to be with two. And I do think that Alaphilippe is a little bit more confident in his sprint against Gaudu than Gaudu might be in his sprint against Alaphilippe.
He certainly will be. You'll be feeling confident of this duo, that he is the faster of the two. But like you say, he certainly can't go it alone, because I think that's when you break that cohesion. It's when you start to lose the time. It's down to 40 seconds at the moment on the lone chaser from Lotto Destiny.
There wasn't a rider for Lotto Destiny in that chasing group, so he came all the way from behind that chasing group and made his way to our leader. Andreas Kroon was there and thereabouts, Harry Sweeney, Lennart van Eetveld, and Maxime van Gils, your pick there, Hannah. He's in the mix.
Good on him, the 23-year-old.
There is
He's
Bardet.
trying something, and if there's no real concerted chase behind where they're all working together, he's found his opportunity. You saw from the few helicopter shots that we saw moments ago of his descending ability, and the way that he's been able to take 8 seconds to the duo out front is quite impressive.
Yeah, and also like first catching that chasing group, going past them, and then on his way to the leader. The group with Bardet, well, this is not 16 seconds. They're almost on the wheel there of Maxime van Gils. We have Bardet, Romain Grégoire. It looks like Rui Costa is back in the mix here. Also Higuita, Guillaume Martin. This group getting back together. 44 seconds. I do rate Gaudu and Alaphilippe higher on that really steep climb that we still have to go, because you have looked at the gradients, Hannah, of the Côte du Val d'Anvers. Can you give us a breakdown once more before we end up there in about 3 kilometers from now?
The climb itself is 1.7 kilometers. It's an average gradient of 9.3%, but the toughest part of that climb comes with around 700 meters into the climb, maximum gradients of 13 or 14%, and that's for around 350 meters. So it is double digits in the gradient. It starts to tail off towards the end, the back end, but an incredibly difficult climb. It's actually the descent over the top, if you're in a good position, where it's going to be incredibly difficult to close a gap there, because we saw already how narrow it is, some of the sharp turns, the technicalities of that descent.
1 minute now between our two leaders and the group with Bardet. And we have seen in the past quite a few sprints with two in this race. It's a scenario that happened quite a lot, quite a lot actually. With Guillaume Martin, we have Jai Hindley there. This was Latour, Bardet, Paré-Peintre, Rota, Rui Costa, Chavez, and there goes Guillaume Martin. It's Michael Woods there for Israel Premier Tech, and Rota straight on the wheel. So still a little bit of action there in the chasing group as they basically sprint to the foot of the final climb, aptly called the Côte du Valley of Hell. This is Guillaume Martin, Mike Woods, of course, also a specialist when it comes to very steep walls, in his case. And Lorenzo Rota is continuing on his own. He's currently the number 3 in the race. A little bit of backstretching. This is the second time we see Alaphilippe do this. And Gaudu. The attack came from Julian Alaphilippe, but the swift reaction and the ease of the reaction that we saw from David Gaudu. I think he is the strongest of the two, but it comes down to a sprint. And well, if we look at the victories for David Gaudu, there's a lot of uphill action going on in his sprint, in his wins, 9 in total. And of course, Alaphilippe, he has won bike races in sprints, a total of 39 already, which is 30 more than David Gaudu, and of course he has done that in fantastic sprints. Just 2 wins last year, which of course has everything to do with his rather horrific crash in Liège. There's a little bit of just resignation in this group, and then just going for it. But a minute, Hannah, do you think it's still possible?
It's possible if they continue with the way they're going, and if they get that cohesion. Where they start to lose the time is when an attack has been brought back. Everyone looks at each other momentarily. There's no real movement, there's no persistence in that chasing group, and meanwhile it just lends itself to the breakaway duo. The moment Paré-Peintre is trying to go away, we also saw Esteban Chavez. We've seen a number of riders try something. Mike Woods reacted to that move of Guillaume Martin.
But just like you said, it's no coherent action from the chasers. And these two riders, oh, that is a very kind thing, mister. These two riders are still working well together, which is what they should be doing as long as possible. There we go with the final climb up to the Sommet de Val d'Enfer. Julian Alaphilippe, the former world champion, David Gaudu, the number 4 from the Tour de France. 1 minute is the difference between them and the chasing group, where there just is no cooperation whatsoever. Let's see what these riders are going to do. Are they going to stay together, or is Alaphilippe trying to ride away? I think Alaphilippe just has to stay with Gaudu here, because he should have full confidence in his sprint.
He should have full confidence, but also having ridden into the finish line and crossed the finish line on 2 occasions already, he'll know how strong that headwind is into that final 3 kilometers.
They've seen
and
it.
That he does need assistance. He needs a temporary teammate in David Gaudu if he wants to even have a chance of taking the victory today. However, we saw how much time, it's in a different scenario, I guess, because Remy Cavagna and Valentin Faron were away for such a long period of time, but they did lose quite a lot of time on this climb the previous time round.
Yeah, most definitely. But these 2 riders at the front, they just could follow the wheels. Their teams, well, Groupama FDG has contributed to the chase, I should say. They had one of their riders at the front with Ladanius and Germani doing some of the work. Here we go. It felt like, great to see the Simon Pelot fan club there, with the lady there in rather spectacular colours. He's a popular guy, our Colombian-Swiss or Swiss-Colombian Simon Pelot. But yeah, he's not in that first group. We do know that, the rider for Tudor Pro Cycling. The gap, it feels like just a little bit under that minute. I think just counting from that turn into this climb, it was about 45 seconds, but still, yeah, they're not losing a whole lot of ground. There's one guy chasing one before and then that group, but as long as they're not working together, and there's a lot of riders, sole representatives of their teams, and not a lot of riders who actually still have a teammate there, making it really, really, really hard. Mike Woods there, the front of the group, and back to our 2 leaders. The steepest part is here, but we're almost there. The top is just around the corner here for Julien Alaphilippe and David Gaudu. Alaphilippe could be going for win number 40 in his career. Of course, I said last year, yeah, Alain Philippe. It's almost the same, Alain Philippe. Of course, last year, only 2 wins. Of course, that had everything to do with his absolutely horrific crash. There was 1 win just before Liège in the Basque Country, and then 1 in Tour de Wallonie, but that was the only hole that he had last year. So he's really eager to prove his manager wrong as well. Patrick Lefevre said, well, Julien should start winning for the salary that he gets, which is a nasty thing to say, but yeah, well, that's who Lefevre is.
Trying to prove his manager wrong, but also trying to leave David Gaudu, and Gaudu there responds immediately and says, you're not going to drop me. No matter how much of an injection of pace you put into this climb, I can match it, I can stay here. And throughout the whole race today, I've noticed Gaudu has always had Julien Alaphilippe well within his sights. Whether he's been on the wheel or a couple of wheels back, he's always been there. And at the moment, it's Gaudu who's trying to put one to Alaphilippe now.
And of course, we say that Alaphilippe has the strongest sprint, but Gaudu has been impressive, and you still have to show it on the line, Hannah, that it's not a given, of course, that Alaphilippe is going to win this sprint with David Gaudu. Look at how strong
it's not, and also, wow.
There we go. There we go. There's a little bit of a kicker coming, and then it's a really fast downhill. The peloton, 1 minute and 5 back. It feels a little bit less than that, but let's see what the. This looks like Guillaume Martin, currently there for the colours of Cofidis. Michael Woods is still there. Paré-Peintre, Rui Costa. And this is Kion Uiterbroeks, the winner of the Tour de l'Avenir last year with number 16. Like we saw on Mallorca, not a master descender. He was descending on the hoods, which was a little bit daunting to see, I should say. And he was a little bit afraid. It was absolutely horrendous weather circumstances there on Mallorca as well in that race with Kobe Goossens. But he lost about a minute there on the descent just because of sheer fear.
And some riders do. They really struggle with that descending, and on especially on a race like today, for example, again, you can lose the wheel if your position isn't very, very good. And we saw before how much speed you can carry through some of the corners. If you're any further back and you do have a fear of descending, and you were saying before, Jose, that you really need to be an all-round complete rider. It's not just your physical strength and ability, but it's the psychological aspect. It's also the way and being able to descend and being a master descender. We've seen so many times in the past.
And like Nicky Terpstra said in his column today, ahead of the Omloop het Nieuwsblad, Lefebvre has a way of wanting to motivate his riders with these public statements, like he did with Alaphilippe. He's earning a lot of money. He should give more return on investment, so to say. That was not the exact quote, but it was about Alaphilippe earning a lot of money and not really having the results last year. And like we said before, can you blame him? He was in pieces after Liège, propped up against that tree there on the side of the road. But unconsciously, Terpstra states in his column, this does something to you because you don't want it to. You don't want it to work that your manager says these things to you, but it does work. You do want to prove yourself. And of course, Alaphilippe is an absolute top athlete. He's a former world champion. Of course, he wants to show the world as well that his days are not over.
He's certainly not over, and I think it will have taken a lot out of him, not just the physical aspects, but again psychological, that awful crash in Liège, and trying to come back from that and get back to the top level. And we're seeing week in, week out, the top level of cycling. It's so difficult to win races. There's so many guys who they come into these races to win. There's no training races anymore, and at the moment, Schellemoser of Trek Segafredo, who had a victory only some days ago, he's going in pursuit of the duo who are out front.
Yeah, but it's a little too late at the moment with just the 3.5,
it is.
Just over 3.5 kilometers to go. And especially if you're on your own, even with the headwind that we have after this descent, of course you're not going to breach across to the leaders. And they're racing smart. They are staying together all the way down to the Rhone River, one of the major rivers in France. And of course, already back in Roman times, it was the place for your town, actually, and Valence is one of those towns, actually, from Roman times. Just on the other side of the river, this is one of those commuter towns, Guillerin, Grange, where we're going to. Valence, it's about, I think, 100 kilometers, 120 down from Lyon, all the way to the south of France. And now the tactical games are starting, Hannah. We saw absolutely no signs of attrition on the face of Gaudu, while Julien Alaphilippe has been making all sorts of faces.
He has, but he's always very animated, isn't he, with his facial expressions, Julien Alaphilippe, and we've already seen him do up the boa on his shoes. It shows he's getting ready for the sprint
his back,
and getting ready for this victory. Stretch, absolutely.
It's a little bit of mind play. Is it like, oh, oh, my back is hurting. I might not be as good as you think that I am. But also they have to be very careful not to be playing poker these final kilometers, because then a gap of a minute can just evaporate.
And especially into such a strong headwind here. We're basically in this headwind all the way until the finish, until we have that right-hand turn at around 500 meters to go. So this duo, they can't mess around too much, because you can see in the middle we've got two chasers at the moment. Then we've got that group of around 8 riders who, there's still movements, so there's still another 2 riders who are wanting to escape that chasing group again.
Mike Woods is very active at the front, the Canadian of Israel Premier Tech, talking about somebody who never gives up and just keeps on going. Mike Woods is, of course, one of those riders. But it's becoming almost impossible unless they come to an absolute track stand, still looking at each other and not wanting the other to start the sprint first. But so far they know they have to stay together until the finish, and they have to sprint it out. And because even attacking in these final 1.5 kilometers is a little bit of professional suicide if you try to go on your own right now.
It is, and I don't think either one of them are going to be able to get away from each other in this final 1600 meters. You just saw as well, once they'd gone through that double turn, the right hand and then the left at the roundabout, they had that opportunity to take a look around, see if the chasers were in sight, see if the two at the moment who are pursuing leaders at the moment were almost upon them. Still a minute, and still movement from behind.
Yeah, but this is for third place right now. We have groups of riders in places. There we go, on to the Flamme Rouge with David Gaudu and Julian Alaphilippe. There is the Flamme Rouge, the red kite. Final kilometer is coming up in this rather entertaining edition of the FAUN-ARDÈCHE Classic. 168.6 kilometers. Gaudu is glancing over his shoulder. It is still a headwind. You can see it from the Flamme Rouge. And Alaphilippe is like wanting to give the lead, or wanting actually to force the lead onto David Gaudu. Alaphilippe, he's far more experienced in winning bike races than his young compatriot David Gaudu, who's won 9 to date. 39 wins for Julian Alaphilippe, but they keep on riding all the way to the finish line. They are going to sprint it out on the line. They know that they have to keep riding. There's a little bit of reprieve from the wind there on the wheel of Gaudu, who's playing a little bit of mind games there. Alaphilippe is getting to the front. He wants to be the first one into that final turn that is coming up. Gaudu doing a little bit of fidgeting with his helmet, glancing over his shoulder still. He starts the day as a man maybe with some doubts, especially some doubts uttered by his management, by Patrick Lefevre. There goes the motorbike into the fixed cameras here, into the gates. There's no riders coming from the background. The commissaire is still behind them, knowing that the gap is still a minute. There we have a little bit of a drag sprint going on here. Alaphilippe, he is pulling his earpiece out. He doesn't want to hear Bramati screaming in his ear. He starts the sprint from first place. Gaudu is eyeing him. This is a very fascinating sprint, and there he goes, Julian Alaphilippe from the first. Can Gaudu actually match the speed of Alaphilippe? No. It's very unlikely, but he's going to try. Alaphilippe is going to try to match the sprint there. It's a very tight sprint. No, but in the end, it's Julian Alaphilippe winning. Career win, number 40 for the former world champion. David Gaudu comes in second place. Good sportsmanship there from the two French riders. Schelmoser here, together with Lafay. And there goes Schelmoser. He wants to be on that podium. The man from Denmark. Nice little sprint there from Matthias Schelmoser. Lafay on the wheel. Another podium place for Matthias Schelmoser. Just 30 seconds down in the end, but a third place for Schelmoser, no less. There we are with Romain Grégoire. Also crossing the finish line, we have Paré-Peintre there. This is Guillaume Martin. Sprinting for minor placings, Rui Costa, Mike Woods in this group as well. But the winner today is Julian Alaphilippe. Well, we did expect it, Hannah, that he won in a sprint, but I think that Gaudu was awfully close in the end.
He put up a great fight, and he's been in this position before when he won the race back in 2021, when it was a two-up sprint between him and his countryman, Clément Champoussin. And so Gaudu, he was confident in his ability. I think he went in the position that he was confident in, letting Alaphilippe do that final 500 meters or so into the headwind before they made that right-hand turn. And I think he can be very happy with that performance today. And it's straight away afterwards, it was a fist bump between both of them. It was Schelmoser denying Victor Lafay to make it an all-French podium.
Let's watch a replay of, well, not the sprint, but this moment of sportsmanship there. Well, they knew that they needed each other, Hannah, as well, because on their own, it would have been much more difficult. Here is the top 10, pretty fast. Julian Alaphilippe, David Gaudu, Schelmoser, Lafay, Grégoire, Félix Gall, Lorenzo Rota, Guillaume Martin, Rui Costa, Pierre Latour, Romain Bardet, and Aurélien Parapintre. A lot of French riders here in this French one-day race, the first one of the year. Oh no, second one, of course, after Marseillaise. Tomorrow we continue with a race that is about 30 kilometers longer. It's hillier in the final, and we are going to l'Étoile-sur-Orne with another nice little plateau, not that far from the finish line, but